Hi, and welcome to another episode of Home Ec,
We're your hosts, Jen and Kelly.
where we teach you all the things home that school didn't.
Today, we're going to be doing an episode for our landlords out there, and we're going to go through how to screen a tenant who's applying to rent out your unit.
Considering the landlord and tenant board is completely backed up and it can take upwards of 12 months in order to get a non-paying tenant out, we thought it was really important to go over all of the things that you would want to look at and look into before actually placing a tenant in your investment property.
100%.
So take it away, Kelly.
So we're going to start with, before you get into the nitty-gritty paperwork, due diligence phase, keep it simple and do a pre-screen over the phone, ideally, or email before you even allow this prospective tenant to come into your property. Of course, working with a realtor, we can help go through this process for you, but a pre-screen is really important to get an idea if we or you are even wasting our time or their time having them come and look at the unit. Get an idea of when they're looking to move, if this property is suitable for them size-wise, if they're comfortable with the payment amount, and what their job and income is roughly, so that you know if they're someone that you're open to considering.
And so that's more of a verbal conversation. Once you get past that point, you're like, you know what, this person might be a good fit. We jump on into the full-on rental application, where they would include everything from their name, current address, their current landlord, past landlord, information on where to contact them, their employment information, their salary range, and anything else that might be pertinent to know before actually placing them as a tenant. There is also consideration for anything that they may have to pay, any debt from, say, for example, a car loan or student debt that would need to be taken into consideration because it's income that would be taken away from the property and paid out of pocket for them. So you want to make sure that the money that they're bringing in accounts for the rent that they would be paying you.
100%. And we know that the standard ideal to look for is that the rent is 30% of what they're bringing in. Nowadays, that is a little tougher, but that is what we're looking for ultimately. So that's your nice little cover letter to give you kind of an idea of what they are or what they like to say they are. And then it's time to really dive in and make sure that it all, follows through.
Because they can go ahead and put everything they want on paper, but it's up to you to go ahead and do your own due diligence and fact check.
100%. And again, depending on how you go through this process, it may be your realtor who's going ahead and doing these verifications, or you may be doing it yourself. So number one is looking at their credit report. A lot of people will send just like a screenshot of their actual credit score. It's really important to look into the full report. And this can be for different reasons, whether their credit's great or not so great, maybe even below the threshold you're looking. If they're a good applicant otherwise, I do always encourage looking further into the story of their credit. Go through the report. Maybe they've had a couple credit pulls and that's what's stinging them. It's not actually their ability to pay off their credit, or maybe there's an additional story there. So I do think that credit's very important, but there is sometimes a story to go with that. So make sure you really look into it if you believe this could be a good tenant.
Essentially, it is a spectrum because someone could have gone through a very large divorce or had to have sold a property and that really affected their credit, versus if somebody has taken on a lot of credit card debt. If somebody has a lower credit score, but I know that they've recently sold a house or they've gone through a divorce, that might be somebody I would still consider as a potential tenant, versus someone who has maybe slightly higher credit, but their credit cards are completely maxed and their debt to income ratio doesn't make sense. And I'm concerned that they may not be able to pay the rent.
Exactly. And this is important. I find nowadays, whether it's laziness or lack of education, a lot of people don't realize that they should look further into it. They see the number and they take that at face value. So a lot of people may be passing up great tenants that you could get your hands on.
Absolutely. So the next thing we want to look at is their actual employment. You want to make sure you do your due diligence and verify that they work where they say they work. So this includes either calling the number that they provided or contacting HR via, again, a phone number or an email, and ensuring that this person does in fact work there and they do in fact make the salary range that they do. It's important to also consider if somebody's been there for a long period of time, if it's something that is consulting, or if it's an actual full-time position or a part-time position. These are all things that you're only going to figure out and verify if you actually go ahead and contact the employment that they have listed on their rental application.
100%. And two other pieces to add to that is when you do have a phone number, if it's one they've provided to you, still Google it. Verify that you are in fact calling the correct company and it's not their aunt who's playing Google that day. As well, if you're self-employed or your tenant that is applying is self-employed, you're going to need further documents such as an NOA. You may need to see some bank statements to see the financial health of their business and what they are taking from that as well. And then, of course, you need to contact their previous landlords. What better reference than the person whose home they are currently or previously have lived in? So again, make sure that you are in fact calling the landlord, not their best buddy. This can be a little trickier for us. For example, if we're provided with a name and an address, we can verify that through a platform that we have to see that they do in fact own the property that you say you're renting from them. But calling the landlord, making sure that they take good care of the property. Have they been paying on time? Have there ever been any issues with, say, other tenants if it's a multiplex? Just getting an overall vision of the quality of tenant that you're looking at.
And if there is, just to add on that, if there is 2 previous landlords listed, make sure you call both, because the first one might be telling you a really rose-colored story because they want them to leave the current property. So make sure you call the second or the third one if they're listed so that you can get the full picture and a good idea of if this tenant is going to be a good fit for you and your income property.
Exactly. I will say, as well as calling a previous landlord, it's not a bad idea to get other references as well, whether it's someone in, their career field or someone they know. The more references you have to call, the better.
The last one that not the last one, or the second last one that you might want to consider is actually evaluating the tenant's rental history. So you can contact the landlord and tenant board. If they answer, that's not on me, but you can contact them and figure out if there has been any past evictions or any claims against them so that you're not getting, for example, a professional tenant or somebody who has had anything negative put against their name on the landlord and tenant board that you wouldn't want.
100%. And I think going along with kind of all of those points within the due diligence, go on Google. Go on Google, go on Facebook, go on social. Nowadays, we have so much more access to people than we used to. So going in and checking those things, maybe you Google their name and they're in an article in the Globe and Mail that they are a professional tenant taking money from people. So that's an important piece as well. And then, of course, you're going to want to do either an in-person meeting or showing, or if that's not feasible, maybe do a Zoom meeting. It really is important to get a feel for that person, their communication, their demeanor. If you believe that you guys can communicate well, they are who they say they are, and you're comfortable with the way that they live and coming to your home.
Bonus, we do have to talk a little bit because we touched on it, social media. Check their social media profile, have a look at their name, make sure that their name matches their social media profile. And if it doesn't, make sure you're okay with what their social media profile name is or that their content is. As long as it's okay with you and it is okay with your sort of tenant threshold, then that works perfectly. But if it's something that you're not comfortable, you do want to consider what their social media profiles are saying about themselves.
And if you're not reading between the lines, that may mean maybe they're an influencer and you don't like that they're showing your house online, or maybe there's someone who likes to sublet an Airbnb and you're not comfortable with that and you can see that's something you're doing. There's so many little nuggets you can find on social media that let you know if this is someone that you're comfortable with or not.
So those are our tenant screening tips. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Home Ec with Jen and Kelly. As always, DM us or send us a message if you have any questions or need any help leasing your investment properties.
100%. If you don't want to do the work, we will. See you next time.